Regio is a smaller one with only 250 square kilometers, but only 50 kilometers or 5,000 hectares cover Las Terrazas complex. And I would like to start talking about the local history. Everything started 200 years ago when French immigrants arrived to this place and they started fermenting coffee plantations as they do already in Haiti. The variety of coffee they planted the most at that time was Arabica, which is a mountain variety. You have to take in account the altitude, some shade, some sun, it was a mountain coffee. And French people have to cut most of the trees to get a coffee plantations. They contributed to the deforestation in all the hilly areas. But before French, there were the Spaniards who colonized the country. They cut down the trees as well, but at that time, well, to export cargo to Europe. And at the beginning of 20th century, Cuban families who started to live isolated, scattered on the mountain in very poor conditions. They cut down the trees as well, but at that time, well, for making charcoal. So producing charcoal was the main economic source of living at the very beginning of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution in 1959. And at the very beginning, even the government of the state realized that only 11% of the forest in Cuba was covered with trees. The rest was devastated. That's why they decided to plant trees again, start all over again. And mainly in this region, that was in 1968, they decided to plant 6 million of trees. 23 species of them, and mainly hardwood trees, timber trees. Later, 10 years later, they decided to plant some fruit trees, mangoes, grapefruit, avocados, coffee bushes as well to see the behavior of the land. And for taking account this project, they have to invite families who live on the mountain in poor conditions, and for them, they decided to build this small community called Las Terrazas. And Las Terrazas or terraces, that was the method applied for stopping the soil erosion. They have to cut the hill part of the mountain like a step every 10 meters by bulldozer, of course, or machinery for stopping soil erosion. Because at that time we have to build 1,500 kilometers of terraces. Like this, there was nothing, just some isolated country, nothing else. And this project take about 12 years, and after that time, most of the ecosystems were discovered, and a lot of the species of animals and birds came to live in our place. And that was when in 1985, the UNESCO decided to declare 25,000 hectares as a biosphere reserve. And after this category, bringing by UNESCO forbidden hunting, fishing, we can cut trees, but just in a very controlled way. If we cut a tree, we have to replant 2 more trees, and that's the way we do it here. So everything was fine for the family who came to live in 1971 in Las Terrazas village, and just a few of them believed since the very beginning in this project. 45, 48 of them. The rest stayed on the mountain, still very poor families. And between 1971 and 1978, most of them, they wanted to came to live in Las Terrazas, and that was when the government decided to build more, single houses. As you can see, we have many single houses and apartments. So the apartments were built after 1971, between 1978. And then the rest of the family, they trade the land on the mountain for the houses in the village. That's why nowadays we don't have to pay rent for the houses. We just pay public services. I mean electricity, drinking water, telephone service, gas, but never for the houses. We don't pay anything for the houses because houses are inherited through generations. Okay. So everything was fine for the family who came to live here because they still working in the reforestation project, some of them, or most of them. So now that on the public services we have already at that time a school, polyclinic, kindergarten, dentist place, lab, and so now they need to work outside of Las Terrazas village. And everything was fine for us just till the 90s. You know, we depended mostly from the USSR after the USSR collapsed. So Cuba collapsed too. Just little food, no transportation, no job. And the Cuban government decided to help us again, like in 1968 with the reforestation project. It was in 1994, after the construction of Mocha Hotel, we started to develop tourism here of the main activity. And the main goal was to bring employment to the inhabitants in the community and for the family who live in the municipalities nearby, like Candelaria, Artemisa, and San Cristobal. Same time, 1994, the government decided to continue the same project we started in 1968, but in 1994 was with the basis on tourism. So it was a kind of unique, experimental, sustainable development project.